really have that clear roadmap. That is the key to all of it. Yeah. Know where you're going. Know what you want out of life. Because if you are looking for a certain life and you build a business that does not align, you're going to wind up burning out and giving up and having a bridge that's only built part of the way there.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor podcast with your host, Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we could have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to help guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life through real estate investing. Now sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. Welcome back to the On Purpose Investor podcast. I am your host, Eric, with my most precious, loving, beautiful, pregnant, still bride,
Tiffany.
There it is. I'm shortening it up, but still keeping the sweetness.
Oh, precious.
Right? Yes, it's precious. Well, welcome back to the On Purpose Investor podcast. Today, we are continuing our discussion on objections that newbie or continuing real estate investors may have to either get started or continue moving or to grow. And today's biggest objection we're going to be focusing on is where to begin. You've done a lot of studying. You've done a lot of brainstorming. You have seen other people be successful, and you have no clue where to start.
Right.
And last week we talked about analysis, paralysis, and fear. And usually that comes after you've kind of chosen a path. You know, you've chosen a path, and now you're analyzing deals within that path, or you're analyzing how to get started in there. But, you know, this episode, we're talking about where do you begin? There's so many different avenues to choose from out there.
Yeah, I had a friend reach out and she said, I'm interested in getting my real estate license, multifamily, small single family. Like she had a list of like 5 things she was considering doing.
So it was like 5 different branches off of the tree.
Yeah.
And
all of them are great.
You can't travel down each branch at the same time.
Right. And then I've seen also within like Facebook groups for real estate, people saying, I really want to pursue multifamily.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have enough experience or I'm not ready. And if that's the strategy you want to pursue, there's nothing wrong with starting with something that other people do later on. You just have to find the strategy that works for you and
have the education to back it up.
Right. And then stick with it.
Yeah. You don't want to start as a syndication if you have no clue how it works and whatnot. So, I mean, where you start really depends on what educational level you have or are willing to obtain.
Yeah, so, and how much you're willing to work with other people to learn. It's really, single family homes is a lot easier to start with because most of us own or have lived in a house or an apartment. So we know what kind of is entailed with that. Yeah. You definitely learn a lot as you get started. But I think the thought of buying a 10-unit apartment complex to us was so foreign. But buying one house felt more reasonable.
I think the reason why it felt more obtainable for us to buy a single family home was because of the house that we sort of turned into a rental. It was my former house.
Right.
And it just kind of happened. But if we had no house to begin with, and we were just, you know, cruising the almanac of different things you could invest in as a real estate investor, we may not have chosen single family. It was comfortable to us because we had, 4 months of experience as a landlord, which I was pretty awful at. And then you got in there and realized, hey, we can make this a business. Yeah. So, you know, you said, you know, getting started, and that just sprung up a thought, you know, we got started on accident.
Yeah, there was more research to it after we got into it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I really remember reading John Schaub's book, Buying One House at a Time.
Mm-hmm.
And he sold me on single family homes in that book. So I would say it was happenstance, but there was also strategy that came after the fact for us.
Well, it came through educating.
Right.
And if you never picked up John Schaub's book, and say you picked up a different book on, you know, syndications, or you picked up a book on
storage units or something like that.
Commercial investments. Yeah. That may have been our starting point.
For sure. Definitely.
And, you know, we could have bought one self-storage facility that, you know, had 800 units.
Right.
And probably had the same cash flow we have today.
Yeah.
But that wasn't our strategy, and that's not what we pursued.
Right.
And we chose single family homes. And the investing style of single family homes that we chose was burring.
Right.
And that was, I would say it was a very popular thing in 2018. Like it was the hot thing. It was the hot topic. Everyone was talking about it. And the Burr book, I think, was either coming out or had already come out.
It hadn't come out yet when we were really
promoting it.
But it was the strategy that worked in that market. Mm-hmm. I think that's why it was such a hot topic, was houses were cheap to buy, relatively cheap. You could add value easily, and then you could get the appraisal up. Mm-hmm. And because the market was, skyrocketing up, by the time you buy the house and renovate it, your ARV, your after repair value, that you estimate when you bought it is probably 20% higher than what that appraisal came in at. So it was a prime time for that strategy.
Right. And there are many different seasons of the real estate market.
Right.
There is, buyer markets, seller markets. There are markets where great interest rates, high house prices, or vice versa. So, there's just many different seasons, and one particular approach doesn't work in all seasons.
Right.
That's why it's important to keep the lens on your future and on your roadmap of, just because we're doing this right now doesn't mean we're always going to do this.
Right. We rent houses by the room right now.
Yeah.
That is not in our long-term vision and strategy, because it's higher touch, higher maintenance, and eventually we want to have less touch. And frankly, we don't know if our city's going to continue to allow something like that.
No, absolutely.
So it's not something we're banking on, but we're ready for that strategy to pivot if it needs to.
Right. Just like, short-term rentals with, Airbnbs and stuff like that. I know a ton of people are jumping into that right now. And that is a hot topic. And it is a way to be successful in this market, because you can buy at retail and turn it into a short-term rental or, overnight rental type thing and be successful. But in 5 years, is your municipality going to either A, allow it, or B, allow it to go on at the current income stream you have without further taxes?
Yeah.
So
restrictions that make it kind of impossible to continue.
I've definitely heard the stories from other cities throughout the country where, if you want to do an Airbnb, they're limiting you to maybe 2 in that city.
Right.
And with those 2, you have to have quarterly inspections of the property. And if that municipality deems your property to be uninhabitable for, let's say, a smoke alarm detector going off, they can shut you down for, 3-4 months. Right. And, at what point are you allowed to just manage your rental property?
Right.
Because, it's not like landlords out there are just ignoring smoke detector batteries. Right. It's just happenstance that it happened.
Right.
That they inspected on the day that battery died.
And this is not us saying don't do Airbnb or short-term rentals or anything like that. It's just
our risk tolerance for it in the future is just that we're not comfortable moving into that stream just yet, because it is relatively new.
And it doesn't fit within our dream life and our roadmap.
Right.
Because our vision for our life involves being on the road and being free from having to go to a property. And that's a lot harder to do with that model. Yeah. Not impossible. You can definitely hire people and make it happen, but it just doesn't fit with what we want and what we want to deal with. And
we bring all of this up. Well, I brought it all up just to say that no matter where you begin, you're likely going to have to shift at times.
Right.
So let's jump back to the conversation of us talking about, where do you begin? And we wanted to go through a list of a bunch of different places you could begin. We're not going to dive into each one and explain what each one is, but these are just different places you could begin. And in the Pathfinders journey, Charlie and Eliza, so let me jump back. Pathfinders Journey is a book that Tiffany and I co-authored and launched in July of 2022. And it is a story about a young couple that get involved with real estate investing and change their life. And when they're figuring out their roadmap and where they're going, their mentor advises them, you need to go listen to podcasts, you need to go read books on real estate investing and figure out a path that works for you. Because you're going to evaluate what is in your toolboxes and build a strategy based on your strengths. And you're going to farm out your weaknesses. And what they decided was that they were going to go and do the Burr approach. So that's what worked for them. But now we're going to go through a list of all the different things that you could do to get started And these are different places to say, this is where I'm starting. Yeah. So, Tiffany, go ahead and start reading some of these off.
Yeah, so you can buy residential single-family rentals. You could also do multifamily, so apartments, or looking at maybe some small multifamily, like a duplex, triplex.
I think so if you're looking to do house hacking, which is you live in one unit of a home and you rent out the rest. So you live in one unit of a triplex and you rent out the other 2 units. I think with FHA, you can buy up to a 4-plex.
Yes.
And that's with today's requirements in 2022. But you can buy 1 quadplex and live in 1 unit and have 3 units that are providing income.
Right. And if you break even each month, not having a rent or mortgage for yourself can be what sets you on the trajectory to financial freedom.
So what's the importance of being able to buy a quad with an FHA? And I would say that the biggest advantage is that you get to buy this property with 3.5% down. I know there are some stigmas that attach themselves to FHA, like, PMI is permanently attached to an FHA. What is PMI again?
Private mortgage insurance. So it's a percentage of the loan that you pay each month. The idea is because you have such a low down payment, the bank's at risk. So they buy this insurance. So if you default, you don't have a ton of equity. So you're paying for the privilege of not having a large down payment. Now, you can do an FHA loan with 20% down and not pay it.
Right. Can you refinance out of an FHA and get rid of that PMI?
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we did on the house that I bought initially. It had appreciated enough over probably 1.5 to 2 years that we were able to do, I think we did a cash out refi actually, and wound up with a 20% down, if you will, an 80% loan to value. So we had 20% in equity so that we could avoid paying that PMI.
Right. Now, when you buy these properties, 3.5% down FHA, you're usually not buying a distressed property, because FHA guidelines are going to require that the house is functional to a certain extent.
Right.
So there's not a lot of there is opportunity to do value add, which what I mean by value add is that you buy a property that is, let's say, in B condition. B meaning, the floor and the paint and the fixtures and the countertops in the house are not high quality. We're talking Formica, we're talking, 20-year-old light fixtures, 20-year-old systems in the home. And you can go into these FHA properties and do a value add where you replace the countertops with granite or some type of solid surface. You refresh all of the hardware throughout the house. You put a new AC, you put a new roof on it, and you have a value add there. And you can, add value that way. But at the end of the day, if you can get into a quad with 3.5% down and you're renting out 3 of the other units, and you're generating enough cash flow to not only pay your mortgage, but to also generate cash flow for you, that's a win.
Right.
Even if you are paying PMI, it's still a win. It doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, you own that property, for as long as you want to. And after a year, you get to move out.
Right. Well, and generally, the rate that you're going to pay, the interest rate, is pretty low on an FHA loan. So if you factor that PMI, if you kind of count it as like extra interest, you're probably still better off than having an investor loan.
Let's say it's an extra 1.5, like 1.5% extra on your mortgage.
It's still probably a better rate.
Yeah, instead of, let's say your mortgage on your principal or your mortgage for the home is 4.5%. Just add another 1.5 and you're at 6%. And that's still probably cheaper than it would be to get private money.
Right.
So
definitely.
Or a commercial note.
So we've got residential single family homes. We've got multifamily. We talked about house hacking. BRRRRs, we've talked about a lot in the past. Wholesaling. Yeah. Master leasing. What else?
Well, I know that you could also get into this from behind your computer. You can get into real estate investing and start without ever having to leave your house. And what I'm talking about here is digital lead generation, where you can create an SEO-driven website where you are digitally marketing to anyone out there that searches, I want to sell my home. And, they say, sell my home zip code. And you can generate a website that will drive them to your website, and then they'll put in their information. I am so-and-so, I live at this address, I have this kind of home, here's the pictures of my home. And then you bring that in, and you get all of this data on this property. And then you can either sell those leads to someone else and they follow up and handle it from there. Or you could even go as far as you make the contracts, you get it under contract and you sell that contract.
Right.
Or you can go one step further and say, you know what, these are all my leads. I'm going to convert all of these either to flips or I'm converting them into rental homes.
Yeah, you have to be very tech savvy to do that. It's a lot of SEO and website building and things like that. And you can pay other companies to do it, but I think the prime opportunity is when you do it yourself and really know how to do SEO and that's search engine optimization. I would say with this list, I know you have a couple more you want to get to, pick what sounds interesting to you and then go educate on it.
Yeah.
Find a podcast that specializes in it or read a book on it. That's and then if it's interesting, continue educating and then take action.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no way you're going to get comfortable with something without immersing yourself in it.
Right.
And when I say immerse yourself in it, if you find that you like, short-term rentals and that's what you want to do and you want to buy homes to be Airbnbs, what you consume in a day should probably be 80 to 90% short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And you should be knowing all the verbiage, all the vernacular, everything that goes with short-term rentals. And you should be able to have someone call you and say, hey, here's this property, and you should be able to analyze it, within 10 minutes.
Right.
And say, oh, this will generate this type of income. This is the type of fixtures I would put in this home. This is the type of furniture I would do. This is how much it's going to cost to set up. Here's how much annual revenue it's going to be. Here's my overhead.
Right.
You should be so well versed.
You want to be the expert.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
That thing.
The only way you're going to become an expert is if you immerse yourself into what it is you want to do.
Definitely.
So that was another one that I was going to talk about is short-term rentals.
Yep.
Buying homes just for Airbnb or VRBO. Another one is shadowing. So how do you get started? Where do you begin? You might just get started by just shadowing someone and offering your services to them. Another one could be mobile homes. Maybe you want to invest in mobile home parks or, mobile homes on the land, or maybe you just want the land and rent out the spots to get people to put their mobile homes on. There's a whole world when it comes to mobile home investing. Master leasing. Did we talk about master leasing yet?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So, master leasing, we talked about that, I think, in the last couple of episodes where I rent from Tiffany. I say, hey, I want to rent your house. I rent it from her. Then I go rent it to somebody else. She has all the risk of the mortgage and, making sure that property is taken care of, but I just manage the tenant.
Yep.
So there are multiple places to get started.
Right.
And multiple ways to get started. Thing is, you just got to pick one.
Right. Pick one and look through the list we just named off, look at other possible strategies out there, and just make a decision and then start educating on it. Stick with it for 90 days. 90 days should give you enough time to learn enough to know, is this where I want to go?
Yeah.
And I know we haven't really talked a lot about it, but sometimes getting your real estate agent license and helping others buy and sell homes is a great way to get into the business too. But you want to pick one strategy, focus on it, and then assess after the 90 days.
So why do you say stick to it for 90 days? Why not try one every week?
Well, I think 90 days gives you enough time to have a solid enough education to where you really understand it enough to make the decision. If you get into this and you're, a weekend and you're like, I absolutely hate this, I don't want to do it, then you should probably consider switching sooner.
Right.
But you don't want to take on a different strategy more frequently because you don't have time to be sure.
Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out to me, Brandon Turner mentioned this on a Bigger Pockets podcast years ago. And it really stood out to me. So I started following James Wedmore, and I'm actually in his training program now. He talks about bridge building.
Okay.
And I know Brandon talked about this a lot on the podcast, but the idea is you're on Reality Island right now.
Okay.
And you want to be on Fantasy Island.
We all want to be on Fantasy Island.
Yes. And Fantasy Island is whatever your dream life is.
Okay.
So if you start building a bridge and you get 90% of the way to Fantasy Island, and then you decide to start building another bridge and get 30% of the way there, and then you go back and you're like, well, I want to do this other thing. So then you build one and get 50% of the way there. you still have not made it to Fantasy Island.
All these bridges are just kind of going halfway or a third of the way out there. You can see the island a little closer every time, but you never get there.
Picking a strategy and sticking with it is the key to getting to where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think a great way to think about it is build your bridge to the island, go have fun on Fantasy Island, and then build another bridge home. And then build another bridge out there. And, create 3 or 4 different bridges, but one at a time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So James talks a lot about the 90-day strategy. Mm-hmm. And you set a goal every 90 days in his program. So for us, our 90-day plan is we want to launch a program that will help people start their dream life.
Yeah.
And start working towards their dream life. So with that, we have a 90-day plan that we're going to do a beta launch.
Yeah.
Which when this airs, our launch should be wrapping up.
Okay.
We set that 90-day plan as the Q3 of the year, which happens to coincide right with when we expect to have our son. So it worked out well. And then our plan for Q4 is figure out how to parent 2 crazy boys, because I have a feeling this child coming is going to be just as wild as our toddler. So we're very intentional on having 90-day plans so that we can focus on one thing at a time and make the main thing, focus on our one thing. And then after the 90 days, we can reassess and decide, do we need to continue focusing on this? Or do we maybe need to shift and look at something else?
And the attention span of people, 90 days doesn't seem like that long to give something your full attention.
Yeah.
But, I mean, think about like seasons of sports, baseball, it's not year round.
No, but it pretty much is.
Well,
good grief.
But the idea of it is that, they don't play it all year round, not for the sole reason that the athletes need rest and you need time to, revamp and whatnot like that. But the attention span of viewers, shifts. There's a season of baseball, and then there's a season of football. Then there's the season of NASCAR, and then the season of tennis and all this other stuff. And I think it's that they want to make sure that the viewers have a chance to breathe and switch gears. And given the 90-day window is something good for you too. You get that window of opportunity to breathe and reevaluate and see so you start the 90-day journey, day 1 to day 90. You get to evaluate and say, am I happy to where these 90 days led me? Or do I need to change it? Do I need to be heading in a slightly different direction these next 90 days?
Right.
Or do I need to keep traveling and building this bridge?
Yeah. So. And at the end of the 90 days, you have a reflection period where you assess, is this the right thing to continue focusing on? Or should I look at something else?
Right. And
it gives you enough runway to complete a goal, but not so much runway that you get distracted, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big proponent of it because I know I can focus on something for 90 days.
Right. I have a pretty short attention span. And
that
90 days seems like a really long time to me. But at the end of a 90-day journey, I'm like, oh, that was quick.
Yeah.
But, every day feels long and difficult. But so if we had to start over today, what would we do? Where would we begin if we started right now?
I think the market would have an impact on that decision.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk next week about what to do when the market's not in the place you want it to be. Because burrs were fantastic for us.
And we didn't know the kind of market we were in.
Right.
We were very ignorant to the fact that we were in a market where burrs were great. We were just doing burrs because we liked the strategy and it worked.
It worked, and our mentors were advocating it. Mm-hmm. So it lined up perfectly for us.
Yeah.
I don't know if we started over today, if we would do burrs. It worked well because you're very handy.
Yeah.
And I was good at running deals and handling the financing. So It worked well with our tools that we had.
It did.
But I think if we had no cash and had to start over, we would probably do more creative deals and finding off-market deals. Most of our stuff came from the MLS.
Right.
So we found it on Zillow, or our agent found it for us. So I think there would definitely be a lot more on the creative deal side and helping sellers solve problems.
Yeah, I would foresee myself to be a heavy door knocker and possibly a master leaser.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go to tired landlords and say, hey, give me the top $50 of your rental and I'll manage it.
Right.
I mean, I would be a super hustler. I would go find 100 properties at $50 to $100 a door and say, that's all I want. You keep your $500-$600 a month cash flow. I just want that little bit and I'll manage it. You won't have to worry about it. I mean, if I had 100 doors at $100 a door, yeah, I'd have $10,000 a month. And I would probably, with you, figure out how to systemize it.
Right.
And then we would have that cash flow.
So we'd still be using the tools that are available to us,
That's right.
just in a very different way.
Yeah, I would use my social skills to make sure I generated those relationships to get into those tired landlords' portfolios. And then you would find a way to systematize it to make sure we weren't super heavy into it and have the time and financial freedom to make it happen. It's just that, no matter what market you're in, there is an answer.
Right.
There's an answer for you to be successful.
Yeah. It's finding what strategy works for you in that time frame.
Now, just to give our listeners an idea of reality, you're not going to go find a portfolio, be able to manage 100 doors right off the top.
No.
You will probably spend 12 months building relationships and getting one or two. And then it's going to spread like wildfire that you are competent, you know what you're doing, you are good with the tenants, you are good with the management, and they really don't have anything to worry about. And then after like a year of managing a couple, maybe a handful of properties, then people in that community are going to start talking and say, well, he's the guy you want managing your properties. He's the one. Or they're the one. Yeah. He or she, that team is the one.
Right.
In my mind, I was like, I'm talking to someone and we're having that conversation. I'm a he. I identify it that way. So, but there is a way to be successful in any market.
I think the best approach, if you're starting out or you're considering a new strategy, especially because the market is shifting, really have that clear roadmap. That is the key to all of it.
Yeah.
Know where you're going. Know what you want out of life. Because if you are looking for a certain life and you build a business that does not align, you're going to wind up burning out and giving up and having a bridge that's only built part of the way there.
And then tell everyone how awful that bridge building went.
Right.
And that Fantasy Island was truly just a fantasy. Yep. And it wasn't even there.
Right. So have your clear roadmap, then break that down into very clear goals. And then assess what tools you have in your toolbox and where the market is. What is the easy part of the market? For us, when we were starting, it was easy to add value to homes.
Yeah.
Because we could find homes that needed some work, that were priced fairly, and would appraise high enough that a BRRRR worked for us in that market.
Right.
We aligned our tools. You have other tools that you didn't use as we were building.
Yeah.
Because you could go door knock and do these other creative deal strategies, but we didn't have to do it. So why try to build another bridge and learn that structuring?
What we were doing was working.
Right.
And so we just kept building that bridge.
Right.
And honestly, we built that bridge until we got there.
Yeah.
We definitely could have been distracted and went and bought Airbnbs. We had opportunities to buy self-storage. We had opportunities to buy mobiles.
You had an opportunity to buy, was it like a nursing home?
There was a nursing home. There was a school that could have been converted over. Even had the opportunity to buy like 19 cabins, vacation rental property up in the hills of North Georgia. And, we definitely entertained it for a little bit. And then we just had to be real with ourselves and say, while we can make this happen and while it could really help our cash flow, that property does not fit in our roadmap.
Right. So have the clear roadmap, break that down into goals, and then figure out what tools you have that work for your roadmap and that market. And we, at the time of recording this, we haven't done it yet, but by the time it's released, we'll be wrapping up the beta launch of our program that we're releasing that will take you step by step through how to build all of these things.
Yeah.
So follow us on social media, get on our email list so that you can stay updated. We'll be releasing another version of the course at some point. We've got to figure out our schedule with some military trainings and baby life and all the other things, but it'll be coming sometime in 2023. We'll be releasing a full version of it. And our goal is really to help people go through this program and come out with a very clear plan of how to take action.
And what I really want to see our students gain from this course is that they'll have some type of notebook in hand, and they're going to open that notebook and it's going to say, in 3 years, this is what my life looks like. And they're going to turn that page and it's going to say, week 1, what am I doing week 1?
Right.
And then week 2, what am I doing week 2? And why, each week has such significant importance to getting to their dream life. How week 1 correlates with week 23, how, week 4 gets you to week 64. I want to have it laid out for them. Now, it's something they're going to build within the course.
Right.
And we're going to guide them on how to answer those questions. What are you doing these weeks? But at the end of this 3-year roadmap, your life's going to look different if you follow the roadmap.
Right.
And if you're willing to embrace it and put in the hard work and build that bridge.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm super excited about it. Have you mentioned the name of it yet?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, this can be considered the unveiling on the podcast, at least.
Yeah.
Because there will be a lot of social media out before now. But our course is Dream Life University, where, we're going to change your life. But you got to put in all the work.
Yeah.
We're going to coach you.
We'll guide you.
It's up to you to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, you can't expect nothing from nothing. What do they say in the South? You can't get blood from a turnip. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you call it? A colloquialism?
Yeah. It's your Southern man.
That is a big
sayings.
word.
It's like the dad sayings that everyone's dad in the South has said that, or one of 20 other phrases at least once a week since they were in their 30s.
Yeah.
Because you say it now, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Yeah.
I am a dad. I guess the whole dadisms is slowly working its magic on me.
Yeah. The dad jokes have been strong since you were probably 15, but
I guess I've always known I'm going to be a dad.
Yeah.
Or hoped.
Gosh.
It was good. It was God's will that I became a father. So thank you.
So you could tell dad jokes.
Just so I could tell dad jokes.
All your former students are rolling their eyes now.
I'm sure they are. They always did when I was on the podium anyways.
Yes.
Well, you think we're wrapping it up here? Where to begin? That's our main objection this week. Where to begin?
Yeah, just not having a clue. Hopefully this gives you some defined strategies to think through. And if you come up with others, that's great.
Yeah.
But just pick one, target it for 90 days, and see where it takes you.
Like I've been saying it for the past few weeks now, but the whole point of the On Purpose Investor podcast is hyper intentionality.
Right.
And if you can figure out how to begin and where to begin, and how to get through analysis paralysis and all of the objections that accompany starting something life-changing and new, you got to be hyper focused. You got to be hyper intentional. You got to live your life on purpose.
Yeah.
And so
definitely.
that's all I got on this soapbox.
All right. We're wrapping up Eric's soapbox again. Thanks, y'all, for hanging out with us and listening to us talk about how you can pick a path to start or take the next steps. What lessons can you take from this podcast and apply to your life? Don't let the time you invested go to waste. You only get one life, so live it purposefully. That's all we have for you today. See you next time.
Are you ready to discover and build your dream life? Then it's time to become a Pathfinder. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tips and tricks to help you find your path and get the latest from our blog. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying this show, share it with friends, family, and fellow investors. See you next time at the On Purpose Investor Podcast.